you want to know how I got these scars?
Wasn't it gay way, was it?
No.
Okay.
A Latino boy strapped a razor blade on the end of his penis.
That sounds pretty gay.
Yes, I had to go retarded, I was dropped at birth. Fuck all y'all, I'ma let my cock disperse.
Alright, listen up. There's only 3 perfect trilogies in the history of mankind. This, and this. I am correct. Don't question me. But there are quite a few trilogies of films that are mostly good but have only one bad apple. And then there's trilogies where there's only one movie that's actually good. And this leads me to Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight Trilogy. These films have been called both a cinematic masterpiece that elevated the genre and overrated and not as good as people give it credit for. Where do I stand on this? I like all 3. If I had to rank them, The Dark Knight is the best, followed by Batman Begins, then The Dark Knight Rises. I've watched these movies more times than I care to admit over the last decade, but I can still pop them in, watch it, and have a grand old time. But since I've watched it so many times, there are things that I started to pick up on that annoy me now. And this happens when you watch anything repeatedly. And this isn't to say that these movies are bad, in fact they're quite good. Batman Begins took things that were standard for the genre from the early to mid 2000s, but executed them better than those films, and put a slight twist on them to make it feel fresh. The Dark Knight took these comic book characters and stuck them in a movie that didn't feel like a standard comic book movie. It was basically a crime drama and made them work really well, showing that there really isn't a limitation to what you can do with the superhero genre. And The Dark Knight Rises tried to raise the stakes from its predecessors, and even though it didn't stick the landing, it did feel like a satisfying conclusion at the time. So with all that out of the way, I'm going to go through the things that I don't like about this trilogy. And a lot of this stuff applies to all 3 films, so I'll get that stuff out of the way first, then I'll talk about some things in each movie. I also asked you guys what you hated about it, and I got some pretty good responses. Some of it is stuff that I also don't like, but I'll go through some of these comments towards the end.
Girls, you are excommunicated by a gang of psychopaths.
Christian Bale's Batman voice. You knew this was going to be on here. I like the idea of changing his voice when he's Batman. It makes sense and helps hide his identity. In the first movie, it's not that bad, although it did feel a little forced sometimes. But with each movie, his voice got worse and worse. And I heard because of doing this deep, growly voice so much, Christian Bale couldn't even talk when he was done shooting, and that there were some scenes they had to delay filming because his throat was so damaged. So changing his voice, good idea at first, but started to sound terrible towards the end. The fight choreography. Yeah, the fight scenes are kinda lame, mainly in The Dark Knight Rises. It was okay in The Dark Knight, but the story and performances in that movie more than made up for it. And in Batman Begins, the fight scenes used way too much shaky cam, which caused it to not really age that well. I never felt like Batman was a very efficient fighter in this trilogy, despite all the training he did. I get they were going for a grounded, realistic approach for these movies, but that doesn't excuse the fight scenes from feeling so wooden and stiff. The Daredevil series has a more grounded, realistic take, at least when it comes to hand-to-hand combat, and those fight scenes are incredible. This next one only applies to the first 2 films, but Bruce's relationship with Rachel Dawes didn't feel authentic. In the first movie, it felt like it was there because it had to be. Because you know, every superhero movie needs to have a love interest apparently. And in the second movie, she was recast and played by Maggie Gyllenhaal. And she did a good job as a district attorney, but again, I wasn't feeling her and Bruce's connection. So the love triangle between her, Bruce, and Harvey didn't land for me. Throughout these movies, Batman doesn't feel like the world's greatest detective. True, he has a lot of equipment that we see glimpses of, but besides buying back Wayne Enterprises right under the nose of the guy who was in charge, there weren't many times where I feel like he used his brain to get out of situations or to solve problems. He didn't really seem like he was always one step ahead. You can see examples of his intelligence here and there, but he never seemed that smart. Okay, now let's move on to each movie and discuss things that I didn't like that much. Scarecrow is very underutilized. He's used as a pawn by the bigger villain, Ra's al Ghul, which isn't really my problem. I actually like how they work these two together for the plot. And the casting for Dr. Crane is perfect. He just isn't Scarecrow that much in the movie. And I had this bittersweet feeling at the end when he's finally let loose as Scarecrow, only to be taken out like a chump. We see him a few more times in the trilogy, but I don't really feel anything since the last time I saw him he was like this.
Here to help.
I also like to mention I do like the scenes where he is just Dr. Crane, and you can just tell something's off about him. And as the climax draws near, you get excited because you think you're going to see Scarecrow, only to have him shoved to the side and taken out like a punk.
I have one rule.
Batman's inconsistent no-killing rule. This could really apply to the whole trilogy, but in the first movie it's more prominent and hilarious when you think about it. There are 2 scenes in particular. The first is when he refused to kill the prisoner, but then he destroys the League of Shadows building, which easily caused the death of several members, and ironically probably the prisoner too, since his hands are tied behind his back, so he's got no chance of surviving this. And not to mention Ra's al Ghul himself. And then the second scene is at the end when he lets his mentor die. I mean, he doesn't save him. It's kind of hilarious since he has this stance against killing, but he causes several deaths. And and lets another die when he clearly had the power to save him. I don't really care too much because every other version of Batman has killed. It's just that Christopher Nolan's movies were the first ones to really implement and mention the no killing rule. For movies anyway. So it's funny when you start breaking down these movies because he causes the deaths of several people. But other than those things, and the things that I mentioned that could apply to all these movies, I like it. It's a good movie. The Dark Knight is one of my favorite comic book movies of all time, so it was hard trying to really sit down and think about things that I don't like about it, but there are a few. Similar to Scarecrow, Harvey Dent as Two-Face is used very scarcely towards the end of the movie, and he's really only Two-Face for about 10 minutes before he's taken out. And I get that realistically, a guy with his face burnt like this wouldn't survive long without getting infected or being in constant pain. But his turn was quick at the end, and before you know it, he was gone. I would have really liked to see him as Two-Face more. This bullet recreation scene doesn't make any sense. He's looking for a fingerprint on a shell casing, so to do this, he shoots bullets at a wall to see how it shatters, so that he can recreate it in a computer, which will let him know how to rearrange the sample taken from the crime scene, which will give him a fingerprint. It's a weird part of the movie, and I think it was really here to show what kind of equipment he has that the police don't. But on my first watch, I never understood exactly what he was trying to do, and upon rewatching it, I just don't understand exactly how that works. There's a very slim chance that a bullet will actually shatter the same way it did at the crime scene. There's a lot of variables. It's a nitpick, yes, but this part always confused me. And that's about it. I really love this movie. Now this is the one that receives the most amount of criticisms, because it's the one that really has the most problems. The fight scenes are at their worst here, Bale's voice sounds completely terrible, and this movie has several plot holes and conveniences. I could go through all of those, but I really don't want to, because I'll be here all day, and I got shit to do, you know? Although I can forgive some of these, because I still do enjoy most of this movie. Let's go through some of the things that bug me. First is Bane. Now he's a big guy, but I wish he was a bigger guy. Bane is massive, and what makes him even more dangerous is that he's also smart. I am happy that they kept him pretty intelligent here, and he plans pretty far ahead, but I wish he was even more of a physical threat. I wish he was towering over Batman. Also, his voice is annoying. I don't like it. It's hard to understand sometimes, but he does deliver some great lines once you know what he's saying. At the end, he gets killed off in the most anticlimactic way. So Bane here was just okay overall. Arkham Origins is still the best Bane. Now this leads me to Talia Al Ghul. I don't think that she needed to be in this movie. She's basically here just to tie it back to the first movie, but they already did that by changing Bane's origin to be tied to the League of Shadows, and I thought that worked well. So her inclusion and twist wasn't necessary. As soon as it's revealed that she's the big bad villain, Bane gets killed off. So her being here just felt so unnecessary. Same thing goes for Catwoman here. She's just kind of there to be another love interest to Bruce. Doesn't really do much. She was okay though. I just don't like Talia because she just replaced Bane at the end for no reason. And throughout the movie, there are a few things that are introduced as problems, but they quickly get resolved. Like he has no cartilage in his knee, but don't worry, robotic leg, fixed. Bane broke his back, but don't worry, it all works out. Okay, he escapes the pit, but how's he gonna get back to Gotham? Don't worry, he's already there. There are countless little things like this throughout the whole movie that are just glossed over. So those are some of the things that bother me about The Dark Knight Rises. And like I said, I could go over the plot holes and conveniences, but I really don't want to. It'll just take too much time. But I completely understand why people rank this one as their least favorite, or describe it as disappointing. I think it tried to go bigger, but it missed its mark. Now let's look at what you guys had to say. Batman feels like just a mask and suit, and Bruce is the person, when it's the other way around. Yeah, that one I completely understand. Bruce Wayne is more like Batman, but when he's out of the suit, he puts on this giant facade. I think Batman Begins did it pretty well, but later on it became less important. I don't like that they set the standard for superhero films, had to be aggressively realistic to be good. Sam Raimi style, Donner's, made films that, in my opinion, rival and can beat the opposite tone, and tone doesn't beat a good movie. Yeah, I remember a brief period after The Dark Knight, more comic book movies tried to be grittier, more realistic, more grounded. But over the last couple years, they've been slowly moving away from that realistic take on these characters, and starting to feel more comic booky. I think the reason why they shifted it to feel more realistic is to draw in a bigger crowd. I don't like how Joker wasn't shown or mentioned after The Dark Knight. I get that they can't show him again because he was dead, but The Dark Knight Rises could have featured a reference, maybe even a photograph. Yeah, same here. I was expecting some kind of reference to being in Dark Knight Rises to the Joker, but I think out of respect they just didn't. I love these movies to death, but the constant change in aspect ratio from IMAX to 35mm drives me crazy. Yeah, I can see how that can be annoying, and once you notice it, it's hard to unnotice after a while. I never loved the Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises suit. It made sense, but it made Batman look too skinny to me. Yeah, I get that, but I actually really like the suit, although I do wish that Christian Bale was a bit beefier to look more intimidating. Honestly, I would like to see more of Victor Zsasz in Batman Begins. I know he technically isn't one of the main main villains, but it would have been cool to see a little battle between him and Batman. Yeah, for real, I'm surprised we never even saw that. I honestly thought he was going to be in the Dark Knight in the same way Scarecrow was, where they have like a little encounter, because a bunch of inmates did escape Arkham at the end of Batman Begins. The first time we see Batman take out the thug to the docks is amazing, but after that, Batman seemed to forget everything he was taught except for keeping his elbows up. Yeah, true, he doesn't really use these tactics like later on in any other movie. I mean, he tried against Bane, Batman's egghead, Bane's death, the Robin name drop at the end of Dark Knight Rises. I'm not gonna lie, I actually really like that ending, but I can see how the name drop can be annoying because he doesn't go by that name at any other point in the movie. Bane in the Dark Knight Rises wasn't comic accurate. Bane in the comics feeds off of Venom for increased muscle strength. Instead here, it feels like Nolan completely rewritten his character to be more of a terrorist leader of a criminal organization. It's a nice change of things for the plot to be suspenseful and fresh, but there must have been some way he could have had green Venom in this movie. Could have made for some cool action scenes. I completely agree. I wish there was a way they would have worked it into the movie, but I guess that really wouldn't be realistic or grounded, would it? I mean, hell, this intro isn't realistic or grounded, but they did it anyway. So yeah, seeing some Venom would have been awesome. That's gonna do it for the video, guys. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, go and drop a like on it. And go ahead and leave a comment. Let me know what is something that you hate in the Dark Knight trilogy. Thanks for watching. You complete me.
Can you be more threatening?
I said certified freak, 7 days a week, wet ass pussy. Make that pull-up game weak, woo, yeah.
Looks like you could spend a lot of time playing around with that one.